The truth about energy. Why some places and people drain you. Do you remember those times? Walking into a room and feeling the weight of unspoken tension settle around your shoulders. The call with a friend that leaves you exhausted despite having done nothing but listen. The office where the fluorescent lights seem to siphon your vitality hour by hour, until you stumble home emptied of whatever spark got you out of bed that morning. How many of us could say we haven't experienced this? We talk about energy as if it's a fixed resource, something you either have or don't have on any given day. Wake up tired? Blame it on poor sleep. Feel depleted after a social gathering? Must be your introversion. Dread going to work? Who doesn't? But there's more happening here than our cultural narratives allow for. Something both simpler and more complex than the stories we tell ourselves about productivity and self-care. The science underneath the sensation. The brain consumes about 20% of our body's energy despite making up only 2% of our body weight. It's an expensive organ to run, and when it faces threat or uncertainty, it kicks into high gear, burning through glucose at an accelerated rate. When you walk into that tension-filled room, your brain is processing countless signals. Facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, past experiences with these people, potential outcomes of the interaction. All this happens below the level of consciousness, but it costs you metabolically all the same. Some neuroscientists call this allostatic load, the cumulative burden of chronic stress and life events. Your body doesn't distinguish between running from a predator and sitting through a passive-aggressive staff meeting. Both trigger similar physiological responses. I'd rather face a tiger than endure certain social situations. At least with the tiger, the threat is clear. Places that take more than they give. Physical environments aren't neutral containers. They act upon us. The philosopher Gaston Bachelard understood this when he wrote about the poetics of space, how our surroundings shape not just our comfort but our consciousness. The office with no windows, the apartment that never quite warms up, the restaurant where you can't hear yourself think. These aren't just annoyances. They're energy vampires. Studies on hospital design show that recovery rates improve when patients can see trees from their windows. Workers in offices with natural light report less fatigue and better focus. The Japanese practice of forest bathing, Shinrin Yoku, reduces cortisol levels and blood pressure. Most of our daily environments weren't designed with human energy systems in mind. They were built for efficiency, profit, or someone else's aesthetic preferences. We adapt because we must, but adaptation comes at a cost. I worked once in a building where the air was recycled so thoroughly that by afternoon, everyone moved like sleepwalkers. The plants on the windowsills died within weeks. We should have recognized the warning. The people who leave you empty. We've all met them. The person who turns every conversation into a catalog of complaints. The friend who needs constant reassurance but offers none in return. The colleague who creates problems just to position themselves as the solution. These interactions aren't merely annoying, but they're also energetically expensive. Psychologists refer to certain patterns as emotional labor, the work of managing your own feelings to deal with others' needs. Originally coined to describe service work, the flight attendant's permanent smile, the nurse's soothing tone, it applies equally to our personal relationships. When you spend time with someone who requires you to suppress your authentic responses, monitor your every word, or absorb their negativity without reciprocal support, you're performing unpaid emotional labor. The bill comes due in your own depleted reserves. It's not, when I think back over my years in search of the most draining people, the outright toxic ones that have cost me most. Instead, it's the subtly demanding presences, the relationships where the imbalance was so normalized I couldn't name it until I was free. The courage to recognize the drain. We resist acknowledging energy dynamics. It seems too woo-woo, too unscientific, too aligned with crystals and chakras for our materialist culture. Instead, we pathologize ourselves. Call it depression when it might be a rational response to depressing circumstances. Label ourselves introverted when we're simply responding to extractive social environments. Blame our lack of discipline when our willpower is being systematically undermined by surroundings that demand more than they give. The beginning of wisdom is to call things by their proper name. Confucius. The same applies here. Naming what drains you isn't self-indulgence. It's self-preservation. The practical reality of energy management. Few things are more morally sickening than the wellness influencers selling $200 courses on boundary setting to people whose boundaries are violated primarily by economic necessity, not personal weakness. The breathwork coaches who pretend your exhaustion stems from improper oxygen intake rather than systems designed to extract maximum effort for minimum compensation. The reality is both simpler and harder than most self-help would have us believe. Some places and people drain you because they're designed to take more than they give. Some relationships persist in extracting your resources because that imbalance serves the other party. Some work environments deplete you because your depletion is profitable to someone else. This isn't paranoia. No, it's physics, really. Energy flows from higher concentrations to lower ones unless work is done to prevent this transfer. In human systems, this work takes the form of boundaries, reciprocity, and conscious design. What can be done? First, observation. Notice when you feel energized versus depleted. Track it without judgment like a scientist collecting data. The patterns that emerge will surprise you. Second, experimentation. Make one small change at a time. Move your desk near a window. Limit time with the friend who treats you like an unpaid therapist. Take a different route home that passes trees instead of traffic. Third, permission. Allow yourself to trust your body's signals without requiring validation from external authorities. Your energy level is data. It's telling you something important about your environment. I am not selling magical thinking here. Energy management isn't about manifesting abundance or raising your vibration. It's about recognizing that human beings are open systems, constantly exchanging resources with our surroundings and relationships. To do it all again, to live each day with full engagement, requires discernment about where your limited energy goes. The highlight reel of your life won't feature the hours spent depleted in environments that take without giving back. Nietzsche's amor fati, the love of one's fate, doesn't mean passive acceptance of draining circumstances. It means taking responsibility for creating conditions in which love of life becomes possible. Who wants to live forever? Not me. But while I'm here, I want to spend my limited energy reserves on people and places that multiply rather than divide what I bring to them. If you're reading this, you're alive, and that means the story is not over. You're still an agent, still an active participant in the glorious web of energy exchange we all share. We make our own meaning like we make our own energy policies. It's us and us alone who ultimately decide which exchanges are worth the investment of our irreplaceable life force. If you wouldn't do it all again, live tomorrow as you live today. Perhaps you're investing in the wrong places.